Young, he's with us, then we can begin. I'm sorry, say that. Is that what she's saying? Let me text her. There she is. Young Hee, we can hear you, but we can't see you. Here we go. All right, thank you. I think we're ready to call this meeting to order at 6:50 p.m. And first, let us go ahead and begin by saying that there's a brand-new law that we are required to read as it relates to Zoom participants. So please bear with us as we walk through this. And it relates to board trustees on Zoom. So AB 2449 was codified into law and permits the participation of a board member remotely if certain conditions are met. This code section sets out two separate bases for the request. So in the end, it permits participation remotely because the member has a medical emergency, and in this case, a family member does, and this is why trustee Yu is not with us. This request must be acted upon by the governing board and is going to occur momentarily. So the request has been received after the agenda was posted, and the board member, Young Hee Yu, is asking to participate in tonight's meeting remotely, and for that reason, the request falls within the terms of this government code, permitting remote participation. So, is that information correct, Trustee Yu? Is that information correct? Thank you. So I must ask if you have any individual in 18 years or older that is present in the room, in the location with you. Okay, thank you. And now that we have this information, I'd like a motion to approve the request for Trustee Yu to participate.
I'll move.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Welcome, Trustee Yu. So now we will do the roll call, and we'll have Trustee Nakatani.
Trustee Cernsett Hodge.
Here.
Trustee Yu.
Trustee Katz.
Here.
Trustee Abdoli.
Here. And I'm Trustee Nakatani, and I'm here.
All right. And with that, we'll go on to the approval of the minutes.
Agenda, you mean?
Excuse me, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I will move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. And now we'll go on to the opportunity for communications to the board. So the board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and provides this time for members of the audience to address the board only on items on the agenda. And for many folks, they've never been to a special board meeting, so they are different than a regular board meeting in terms of public participation. So the Brown Act requires that agendas for special meetings provide an opportunity for members of the public to address the board concerning any item on that special meeting agenda prior to the board's consideration of that item, which will happen shortly. Unlike regular meetings, however, public comment in a special meeting does not extend to non-agenda items. Tonight, the only item on the agenda is a discussion and action item to discuss the process and timeline for recruiting a new superintendent. So comments on any other topic, please, should be reserved for the next regular board meeting, which will occur on February 9th, 2023, so that we may proceed in an efficient and timely manner this evening. So we thank you for that. And let us begin. Do we have, by the way, any additional comments that have come in? Do we have any Zoom comment, Zoom? public? Okay, so this is Zoom, all right. Thank you. So, each speaker, please, is requested to identify him or herself prior to addressing the board and will be heard once for up to 3 minutes. And it seems that we will have time for that. If we have additional folks come in, we keep a 30-minute time limit for public comment. We may need to modify, but at this point, 3 minutes looks like we'll be able to navigate. And just so you know, the legislative body here shall not prohibit public criticism of the policies, procedures, programs, or services of the agency, or of the acts or omissions of the legislative body. All right. So I have first here a Christine Irving, if she could please come up. You're welcome.
So just really quick, I wanted to say, well, a new superintendent, I'm not sure this is what y'all had signed up for, but I just wanted to say, again, thank you for all of your volunteer time being on this board and for the work that you're doing. It's really appreciated. And finding the next superintendent is an important and critical job. Your time and dedication ensuring a smooth and transparent process is greatly appreciated. And I'm sure that with the strong mission and vision statements that you all have just created, you will find the right person who shares these values. And I didn't realize Kimberly wouldn't be here, but I did want to say to Kimberly, just a big thank you for all that she has done to progress our students, teachers, and the rest of the district forward. I've personally very much enjoyed working with Kimberly over the years, and hopefully, and my husband and I both wish her Godspeed and good luck in her next endeavors. So.
Thank you, Christine. All right, next, Catherine Elder, please. Catherine.
Hi there, I'm Catherine Elder, current TK teacher at Edna McGuire and a expecting parent of a Mill Valley student. In a few months, but we'll be here, or in a few months we'll be here, but student a few years. So I want to say thank you for holding this public forum to kick off our search for a new superintendent. We are looking forward to the board participating in a transparent recruitment process that involves all of our stakeholders, including parents and teachers, and holds the values of Mill Valley School District and the students we serve at the center of all the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Next, please, Carrie Dauphinius.
Hi, my name is Carrie Dauphiné, and I've been a parent in this school district for over a decade. Our family experience has been an incredibly positive one with many amazing teachers over the years. I've been involved as a PTA president, a Measure E campaign field coordinator, and most recently the chair of Kiddo. I'm not speaking on behalf of any of these organizations, but just as a parent. I've never spoken out publicly at a board meeting, but I'm speaking out now because while I've not always agreed with board decisions, I have always trusted the process, and I have concerns that our district will not be able to attract and retain a highly qualified future leader given the current environment in the Mill Valley School District. I'm confident that the qualifications and accomplishments you are looking for in a future superintendent are the ones that Dr. Berman has demonstrated during her tenure. It is unfortunate that our current board did not support Dr. Berman and her student-centered leadership. I know many others here will speak to her leadership during the pandemic, her DEI initiatives, the sound financial health of MVSD, and her critical work in curriculum, scheduling, and assessment. I'd like to speak to another area that I think is really important to consider as we embark upon a search for a new superintendent. The relationship between kiddo, the superintendent, and other district administration is crucial. In the years leading up to and following the pandemic, kiddo had seen a significant decline in our fundraising revenue due to declining enrollment. Dr. Berman worked closely with kiddo as we eliminated funding in many of our previously supported programs, such as PE, world language, and classroom and library aids. These cuts could have profoundly impacted the student experience. Yet Dr. Berman worked with district administration and kiddo to ensure that the student experience held true to the district's vision of an engaging, well-balanced, and rigorous curriculum. In fact, with her partnership, our programs have never been stronger. While we did not always agree, and the process was difficult, it highlighted Dr. Berman's professionalism, communication skills, and ability to make decisions that took into account the needs of our students, teachers, and the district. I am concerned that if our current board, and frankly, some of the MVTA leadership, would not recognize these accomplishments and develop a collaborative and respectful relationship with Dr. Berman, an innovative and visionary leader, how will the district move forward with a new superintendent? As elected officials, you should have done better, you can do better, and you must do better for our school community.
Thank you, Carrie. Next, Jessica Newman, please.
Hi, I'm Jessica Newman. I've been a parent in the district for 6 years. Thank you for soliciting public comment regarding the search for the new superintendent. I just wanted to share a couple of my priority areas as a parent as you think about your search. One would be implementing more frequent and consistent assessments of our students. I'm thinking specifically of the current math committee and making sure that that work is completed and carried out consistently across the schools and across the grades. Promoting consistency across curriculum within and across the schools. Implementing and expanding the targeted learning lab. This gives us really a strong opportunity for smaller group teaching. I know that I saw on social media earlier that the teachers are looking for smaller class sizes, and I think that the TOSA is one way to get towards smaller group learning, and I think that really supports differentiated learning, which came up very much in your vision. I would like to have a disaster plan in place. If we, return to something like COVID, I really would like to see our kids back in school, and I think that that's something that during COVID, the administration here was very strong in getting us back on track. Similar to what Carrie said, I really hope that you can find a superintendent that you all can work with. I think we're in a very tough situation. It's very disappointing. And I would like to see a superintendent here that you all can work as a team and that they can hear the input of all the stakeholders in the group. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Next, Elizabeth Moriarty.
Liz Moriarty. I have 2 kids in the district and a sophomore son. I'm also kiddo board chair currently. I'm not speaking on behalf of the organization, but it definitely informs my perspective. I too am extremely disappointed that we're in this moment, but I have a few things to say about what I'd like you to look for as you move forward in this recruitment, because it's critical. I hope you can find someone who continues on some of the great work that's been started here, particularly the Targeted Learning Lab, the work of the Math Committee, the alignment of schedules, so we no longer have elementary schools with 15 minutes less of school a day. When I tell friends that in other places, they can't believe that ever was happening here. I think formative assessments are incredibly important, and I think more importantly, I think we need to change so we have an atmosphere where like someone like me whose kids have had an excellent experience. We've had incredible teachers every year, particularly at Edna and now in 6th grade at Mill Valley Middle School. But that doesn't mean that I don't see issues that I think need to be addressed in areas where we can be better. And students there are students that are not having the same experience as my boys and that are being left behind. And I think what's so profoundly disappointing about this moment is we actually had a visionary leader who was worried about those things. And I'm concerned that her work will be abandoned. I mean, I don't know how you can think that everything's all right when 40% of last year's sixth graders, this year's seventh graders were below grade level in math. I mean, that's a problem, and we have to address it. I also just, to piggyback on what Carrie said, I have so enjoyed working with Kimberly on kiddo issues. Every time we had an issue, I knew I would walk into a meeting with her. She's a consummate professional. She had everything prepared in advance. She had all the right people in the room to get to a decision. And even if I didn't agree, I walked away understanding that the reasons, and we actually all ended up in a better place. And that's what you want in a leader. She would explain to me, I actually think this is best, and we would say, well, this is our perspective, and many times we'd all walk away with it. We'd come to a different result because of that conversation. And I'm not sure that some of the other parties negotiating in this district right now are actually operating on that same honest, open-minded, growth mindset that she has. And I really hope we can find that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Stephanie Misservy.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Meservy. I have a child at Tam Valley Elementary. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board regarding the agenda item for this special session. And thank you, Dr. Berman, for your unwavering commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion work that has brought countless parents, students, educators, and administrators together across the district. I hope that your commitment to equitable and rigorous academic instruction, as well as your high expectations of each of us in this district, inspires the work of whoever is selected to lead us next. I trust that this strong, albeit majority new board, utilizing Trustee Katz's human resources experience in particular, will be equipped to navigate the selection process of finding a replacement for the current high-performing superintendent who we are losing 2 years prematurely. My concern is that regardless of the process selected, it may be challenging to find someone who is effectively able to respond to the needs of all stakeholders in this district, unless they can feel confident that they will be entering into a work environment where each board member, educator, administrator, and parent engages in self-reflection as to how they may or may not contribute to a safe and mutually respectful district partnership. However you proceed with the selection process, I would ask that there be time taken to examine the way in which stakeholders have been conducting themselves in times of challenge or disappointment over the last several years. In my experience in school board meetings and as an invested parent volunteer for the last 4 years, it has become evident to me that Dr. Berman, very unfortunately, did not have the full support of the Mill Valley Teachers Association, nor that of the newly elected school board. A look at the school board meeting on June 8th, 2022, where a discussion of extending the school day by 20 minutes was held. Stakeholders who are trusted leaders in the community booed our superintendent and yelled at the previous school board. I imagine that if this is any reflection of our current superintendent's work environment, this situation unchecked would have made it nearly impossible for any superintendent to continue to do their job to their full ability, and may be a relevant piece as to how we are here today in yet another special board meeting now focused on finding Dr. Berman's replacement, with a buyout costing our district public funds in the range of probably $500,000, and for what benefit? To our students. Thank you for the opportunity to share my concerns today.
Thank you, Stephanie. And now Linda Brune and Aaron Frazier.
We always speak together, so we thought tonight should be no different, even though it's public comment. Good evening, I'm Erin Frazier, this is Linda Brune. I'm a 5th grade teacher, Linda's a 2nd grade teacher, and we are also MBTA co-presidents. We are grateful for the opportunity to provide public comment on this very important process, which will directly impact our school community. We trust you to lead this important decision-making process in a transparent manner, and we appreciate your guidance in this next important step.
So the process does need to be transparent. This means providing ample opportunity for community members to provide their input on the qualities they wish to see in superintendents. We're speaking on behalf of ourselves and as staff, and as such feel that it's important to provide opportunities for staff to provide feedback at their school sites at times such as staff meetings. Many of us have long commutes and families of our own and must return home to return home after working hours and can't stay for after-school meetings in this process. So the stakeholders should be able to give feedback directly to the board and not exclusively filtered through a search firm. And please consider multiple search firms before making a selection about which company to use for the search. We should select a search firm that values stakeholder input in the recruitment and selection process. And please be transparent with the qualities that you as a board are looking for in a superintendent and share this with the community.
In addition to transparency, we're looking for a process that's very inclusive. We believe that parents, teachers, classified staff, administrators, students, and labor leaders need to be included on interview panels. This is something that was notably absent from the last time we selected a superintendent, and we feel it's essential to the success of our future superintendent selection. We also, oh, you want me to do that one?
Yeah.
We also hope that as part of the process, as you're considering different candidates, that you will do extensive checks on our potential candidates, which means talking to community members, teachers, and labor leaders in the communities where they're currently working. We understand that there are confidentiality issues, but we do believe that there's a point in the process when those conversations can be had.
And the contract for the new superintendent should be part of the agenda for the board meeting so the public can read it prior to a meeting when it will be up for a vote by the board. And consider a one-year contract such as the site administrators have. And consider what a small district we are when setting the salary. I've been in this district for 28 years. This will be superintendent number 7 for me. And I've also been a parent in the district. My son went kindergarten through 8th grade. So thank you very much. We look forward to an active stakeholder participation, frequent and transparent updates on this process at future board meetings and in district communications. So
Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Linda. And now may we have Gina Fagan.
Good evening. Thank you, board members. Thank you for setting up this special meeting for the superintendent search. I'd like you to consider the following when recruiting for the new superintendent. Number one, it's pivotal that the faculty and staff from all schools are part of the whole process of the hiring. The incoming leader should strive to be motivating, inspirational, innovative, compassionate, have a vision for the school district. This leader should honor the culture at each site and the educational leadership abilities of each site administrator. Ensure that this leader can rally the schools and community around common goals. Lastly, they must remember our district-wide motto, be kinder than necessary. These have been historically core values of the district. This is an opportunity to bring in someone not only to restore these traditions, but to inspire professional growth and innovation. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Kelsey Diamond, please.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Diamond and I teach at Edna. Thank you for holding this public meeting tonight to discuss the process for the superintendent search. I appreciate your time. Having had the opportunity to have each of you join us at school sites and listen in on various teaching and learning committees, I appreciate your leadership and your dedication to our district and your focus on the students we serve each day. I'm looking forward to a transparent and collaborative effort throughout this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey. And next, may we have Kate Kellman.
thank you. I didn't finish writing my notes, so this is, I just really am hoping that we find someone that values all stakeholders, including our students. I think our students have a lot to say, and we should hear from them, especially our middle school students, who sort of have a memory of some things that are no longer in our district that they are sad about and that they may want to see bring back. And I think a lot of that is, yeah, I'll stop there. Someone who has experience working successfully with teachers and who values their input. And I think a huge area that I would love to see our new superintendent work on is we have a distinct challenge being a TK8 district, and there's not a lot of communication between our district and the Tam High district. And so having some communication that goes between the elementary district and the high school district would be great. So someone who's interested in that. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Marcy Frutani.
Remind people to introduce themselves.
Yes, please. Yeah, sure.
Hi there. My name is Marcy Furutani, and I am a parent at Edna McGuire Elementary School. With the understanding that as a parent, I may have not had the access to all of the context and the background that this decision was made under, I was very surprised to hear about the early departure of Dr. Berman last week. It's a very costly decision for the district and for taxpayers, and I'm attending this meeting today to learn more. As the board continues to move into this transitional phase, I ask you to continue to keep in mind the traditional greeting of the Maasai warriors of Kenya. Some of you may already be very familiar with it, including our teachers here tonight. They do not greet each other with the standard, "How are you?" but rather, "How are the children?" For if the children are well, all is well. And that is what we need to remember as we move into this next phase. Dr. Berman isn't here today, but I want to thank her for her service throughout probably what was the toughest years in recent history for public education. And I want to applaud her leadership and her vision in creating an equitable school environment for all Mill Valley children. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Marcy. And now Tammy Herndon.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll start by saying I have
Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Tammy Herndon, and I came here tonight as a parent for our Mill Valley schools and as an advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion in both our schools and our community. And I'm sorry that Dr. Berman is not here because a lot of what I want to say is a thank you, but it's also a description of the things that I think are really amazing that she did as a superintendent, and I hope that it will be considered when you are searching for your next one. So I'm thanking her for her incredible support to our school district's efforts in DEI. She made it a priority, and she helped put in place the anti-racism resolution that was passed by our school board of trustees in December of 2020. That resolution laid the foundation to the work we do today in our DEI committees. I want to be sure I acknowledge that important step that was made because it was at a time that our nation was in a racial reckoning, and our school district made a commitment that was really important at that time. So, and for myself, being a former member of the City of Mill Valley's DEI task force, I can tell you it was incredibly supportive and helpful to us when we were trying to create our report and recommendations for the City Council to have her input. She spent time with us that we greatly appreciated, and she was present at the City Council meeting in December of 2020 when we shared our report and recommendations. You know, with all that said, I feel like it's a great loss to have Dr. Berman leave our school district. I'm sorry to see her leave, and I would have liked to have seen our Board of Trustees do everything possible to have her stay. I'm left wondering how we are here yet again in the process of finding a new superintendent. And I want to thank Ellie and Natalie for your kind words and support of our Lunar New Year event that we are hosting. The DEI committees have put together with our amazing team at Tam Valley. And there's still much work to be done, but I'm making this a special thing to point out because we need the support from our entire board, and hope that we will have the same commitment that Dr. Berman showed us. So we'll miss her. Thanks.
Thank you, Tammy. And we have someone on Zoom who will now need to have access. Gabby Dominguez. We have a hard time hearing her.
Put my microphone.
To look at the past candidate when you were looking, when you selected the Berman, when she was elected, because of the timeline that we have for the next school year, you have 6 months. If you don't find the candidate, do you have a plan B to have a candidate in the education that help you to have a superintendent? I think that to be more transparent in the communications and the process because of superintendent, that is something that we can see that the telephone ask about in the communication. Yeah, so it's like a good luck in the making for the superintendent.
You think, is she finished? Okay. I think that perhaps maybe we can reach out to Ms. Dominguez and try and recapture, you know, her comment, because I don't know if anybody.
It might be clear on the recording, so I wonder if we can go back and listen, but I definitely agree it'd be nice.
We need to make sure that her public comment could be heard. So if Gabby, you're still there, we'll make sure that that happens one way or another. So thank you for your comments. And this closes the comment period of our board meeting. And now I'd like to turn over the mic to our board counsel, David Soldani, who is going to be sharing a presentation regarding options, processes, and timelines for recruiting a new district superintendent for the 2023-2024 school year. After the presentation and any discussion on the matter, it is anticipated that the board will select a process and give direction to staff on next steps. And I must interject that Young Hee Yu in the process, Trustee Yu had to get into the car and go to the hospital. So she is, will be participating in that way, best she can.
Okay. Well, thank you for that introduction. Can everybody hear me? So I've been working with the district for several years now, and am currently assisting them through this process. Now, my first choice would be to have a recruiting professional provide this presentation. However, oh, we have one there. I see a volunteer. The problem with that is if somebody from a search firm provides that information on the front end, it wouldn't be appropriate for them to then participate in the mix. And as between those two exercises, I think most recruiters would prefer the opportunity to do the actual recruitment. So this is a process that I've assisted many school districts go through under all sorts of varying circumstances. And so my goal here tonight is to provide an overview of the options and the process, the timeline, some practical considerations. I will likely have a recommendation also just based on the feedback that I heard tonight from the community, and I have to say I was very impressed with the level of detail that went into those comments. And I think I wrote down the word transparency several times, and so I want you to know that I hear that, and I want to talk about that in the context of this process. I first want to address the timeline. It is a bit odd that we're here in a special meeting, right? Normally we would wait for a regular meeting. However, this is a time-sensitive manner, and I'd like to explain why. And this has to do with what I'll call the recruiting season for superintendents, for lack of a better description. Most superintendents, you want them to start at the beginning of the fiscal year, which for schools starts July 1. Well, many superintendents have in their contracts a 90-day notice period. So if you do the work and go backwards, let's see, June, May, April, that means you want to be selecting somebody in March or April. And so backing that up further, before you can select a superintendent, you need to select a search firm to help you in that process. And so rather than waiting until the February 9th meeting, we thought it important to get the ball rolling now so that we can be in the mix during the peak hiring season so that we have an opportunity to recruit the most talented superintendents who would normally be looking during that springtime of the year. So that's the timeline issue. I want to talk about the options, and then I want to dive down a little bit more into the process with each. Essentially, you have two options, okay? First option is very simple. It's not formal. Recruitment is a professional service, and as such, there's no specific process that you have to follow. You could do something as simple as pick up a phone and talk to a recruiter with which the district has worked with in the past or has a pre-existing relationship with. There are pros and cons to that approach. The biggest pro would be the expediency. That's a very fast thing to do. There are several cons, especially as I hear the community weigh in on this. That's a much less transparent process. And there's really less opportunity to hear competing ideas from different recruiters, which I think in this community would be of interest to you. I think you'd want to hear the different visions and how they align with what you're thinking as a community, what your board members are thinking. So that's option number one. Option number two is a more formal process. And again, that's a reason we're speaking tonight at a special meeting. In the event that that's where the board wants to go, we want to launch that process very quickly. And that's essentially that is creating a request for proposals that would then go out to the search firms that specialize in superintendent searches. As a part of that, we would want them to include a lot of the content, a lot of the suggestions that you guys tonight have made around things like assessments, alignment of schedules, cross-collaboration, disaster plan, these types of issues, and other things that are important to the community. For example, we may want them to address their plan for recruiting diverse superintendents, women and people of color. What's their plan? What's their outreach? So engaging in an RFP process gives us that flexibility to put in all of those, I'll call it items on a wish list, what we would like them to be able to help us work through. Recruiters are also very helpful in outlining a process for community engagement. When should that engagement happen? What does that look like? So I happen to like the latter process as opposed to picking up a phone. I think an RFP process is more transparent, and I think it introduces an element of competition, of ideas that I think will be beneficial for this community. As to that RFP process, you can even do that in a number of ways, and I'll talk about the most common. The first one is to have a screening committee. So when the proposals are submitted, you could have a screening committee, and that could look one of two ways. Number one, it could be a subcommittee of the board. So, less than a majority, 2 board members can review and screen the initial applications and then make recommendations for certain of those applicants to proceed to a full interview. There's pros and cons to that approach. Another approach would be to have the applications evaluated by a committee, not just a subcommittee of the board, but a committee that could include a board member. It could include members of our labor partners. I've heard the kiddo organization, PTA, have those individuals and probably some more that you guys would know that I wouldn't, be a part of that committee to evaluate those proposals. A third option would be just to receive those proposals and invite all of the proposers to provide a presentation at a board meeting. And we could have that done in time, I think, for February 9th's regular meeting, if that's the desire of the board. And in that format, you'd basically, you'd have copies of their proposals. You can invite them up one by one and give them a chance to provide, give them 5-10 minutes to do a pitch, then ask them clarifying questions, and then hopefully coalesce around one firm. So those are your 3 options. The latter is probably the most transparent because then everybody in the community sees it at the same time. The middle approach with the committee is a little bit less transparent because the committee is getting kind of the first look at it, and probably the least transparent is to have just a subcommittee of the board so that nobody else is involved in that. Again, there's a timing component, so the more committees, the more steps that you interject in the process, the farther out it's going to be before you can make a selection. For that reason, I do like the approach of just having it at a board meeting and having the recruiters come provide that presentation and receive questions from the board.
David, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
How many different companies do you think might submit proposals? If we want to open that up, that sounds great, but if there's 10, that's a lot. If there's 2, it's,
I would be shocked if there were 10.
Well, no, that's what I'm wondering. What would be, in your experience, what is typical?
So there's kind of the 3 usual proposers. You may, in addition, get a few more. The last couple that I've been involved with, it's ranged between 3 and 6. So I will tell you that in every case, there has been, it's not been an either or. It's not just been one person showing up, and it's not been, is it this person or is it that person? There's at least enough variation and enough depth of experience to have kind of a meaningful evaluation. Okay. And just based on your circumstances here, the reputation of your district and of your community, I don't think a lack of proposals is a realistic outcome. Okay. I think you'll do fine.
And David, with the presenting at the board meeting, I assume it would be like a standard board meeting where community members would have an opportunity to review things in advance, just as the board would, and be able to provide, public comment if they do have opinions, because I'd see they're having seeing the benefit of that as being able to see the presentations and hear it, but not necessarily being able to respond, and it's still the board that would be doing that.
Yes, and you're right. And generally in board meetings, we don't have a back and forth dialogue just for ease of running the meeting. But you can craft that process in exactly that way, if that's the desire of the board. We could make it clear in the RFP that, a portion of that, there's probably some financially sensitive information, but aside from that, make them prepare an item with the understanding that that's going to be placed in the agenda, that the full public will have access to, just so that they have that expectation. And then that way, the community can look at that, and before the item is called, or however you guys do it here in your district, at the beginning of the meeting or when the item's called, they can come up and express their preference, express concerns, or just anything, I like this aspect of this proposal, whatever they want to say on the topic. And I think that's a good way also of getting feedback, not just from a small inner circle, but from as many people as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Just looking at my notes to make sure I've covered what I want to cover. And then I want to turn it over to the board for questions. Yes, I covered what I wanted to cover. I'm happy to take questions of the board.
If we went to one of the other approaches, it would essentially maybe save us a week or two? Is that what we're talking
Basically.
from a timeline standpoint? So it's
Yeah.
not a significant impact to be able to
No.
put transparency front and center, which seems to be what people are seeking.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, I have to mention it because it is an option, but it's not one that I'm recommending you pursue. Time-wise, we are in a good place, provided we proceed quickly with all the steps. So there's no need to it's not an emergency situation. The superintendent's going to remain here through the end of the fiscal year. So we have the luxury of time to an extent. Really, the only time pressure is making sure that the recruiters are in the candidate pool in the springtime, because you want that's where the most qualified candidates will be. They'll be looking in the spring. So we want to make sure that you are positioned there.
So to that end, what you're recommending is for transparency, let's say we have 3 to 6, this will be the time to present, and then there will be a board discussion with an action at that time. So it would seem then that they'll have a good month to go out. Do you know roughly what is the average time for, are you versed in that? Average time, appropriate time before you receive?
About 5 to 8
candidates.
5 to 8 weeks.
5 to 8 weeks.
And the RFP for the recruitment companies is standard? Do we have to have another board meeting to agree on the language?
No, you just direct staff to prepare it, and I
Okay.
will work with staff incorporating the feedback and other customary provisions that appear in those types of documents.
Okay.
And in terms of follow-up so we've talked about RFP for getting the recruiting agencies involved, finding candidates. What does the rest of the process look like? Because it sounds like there's a desire for community involvement from that point forward once we have candidates identified.
Yes, so that is an excellent question. And the answer to that depends largely on who you select as a recruiter and your feedback as a community and as a board. I have seen the final product look very different from district to district based on community need. In some cases, there have been that the recruiter will work to establish a panel, an interview panel. I think one of our speakers mentioned that as an option. Sometimes it's just, interviews just kind of in a closed session setting. And then, everything in between. So it's really, that process should be reflective of the board's and the community's values around seeking new leadership. So those are some of the ways. It can be done many different ways, but that's one of the things that you're going to rely on your recruiter to kind of guide you through that discussion to elicit how you would like the end result to be.
So I'm assuming that discussion is after that recruiter is picked, and
Yes.
then typically, would a board have a study session where the public can come in and, because that's been my experience in some districts, that where the public can come in and the board then directs the recruiter to the kind of process that they want. They
Yes.
present, they get feedback, right? So that would be a session like this. Could be
Yeah. So
during the
again,
day, whenever.
We'd be talking about another special meeting.
Right,
Or
right.
two, but yes, that's how it would work. And you may want to take into account whether you want to do one meeting, multiple meetings, whether you want to do it during the day, or whether you want to wait until after the workday. It's, everything's local. You guys in this room, you have a better sense of what will facilitate the most participation by the most segments of your district, and so I would encourage that more participation is better.
Mhm.
So whatever that looks like in your district.
I mean, I'm good with having everything presented to all of us, and we all have strong views, and so I would hate to have a subcommittee and then maybe it doesn't reflect everyone's views, so I think having the proposals come to the full board, having the opportunity for the public to also provide comment on things that they see in there, provided we, have a structure for that meeting, I think that would be my preference.
I think I'd also like to, with the timeline in mind, to encourage, we can talk a little bit about the RFP process perhaps, and encourage a reasonable timeline to turn around proposals, but enough so that we can thoroughly look these over. David, I would assume that's reasonable. And
Because you're talking about they would have
These
to
are-
be in by February 5th or 6th for us, right?
Yeah, what day of the week is the 9th?
It's a Thursday.
It's a Thursday.
Oh, it's a Thursday. I would say at least by Monday, which would be,
the 6th.
Yeah, the 6th.
okay.
So that's,
That's but that's assuming, but the
Just-
RFP has not been written yet, so we have to give
Well,
our
I think
staff
he
some
said
time.
that, it seems like it's a pretty standard thing that you could turn around quickly and without our involvement,
Yeah, if this
so-
is the direction you want to go, I would want that to go out this week,
Oh,
so
yeah.
that we can give the firms enough time. Let me see, today's the 23rd. Yeah, I'd want it to go out as soon as possible. And, they're used to responding to these things, so it's not like they have to recreate the wheel. They'll want to do, the good ones will want to do a lot of research and try to understand the issues that are unique to this community, to the educational programs of the district. But the actual putting together the document is not terribly time-consuming. It's really the background research they're going to have to do.
Right, so with that, we want to, when would it be appropriate for us to review what you heard from the public tonight, as well as we did, and make sure, because that you have what we think the needs of the public are, that were expressed this evening, because I'm understanding that should we,
that's after we
Yeah, I
pick a
think that's
topic.
after.
no, actually, my assumption was, when I heard him, correct me if I'm wrong, that the RFP, we want to highlight that they have to come prepared to speak to certain values that we have and needs of our community. They need to sell us that they understand us and understand what we're looking for. So the RFP has to have some bullet points that resonate with what we just heard tonight. It's not just send us an RFP and they need to understand something about us, right? Or am I wrong?
Yes, no, I agree, which is why I was taking notes. I'm going to include
Yes.
that in kind of the standard form. But in terms of feedback, if you want to designate somebody from the board to just kind of look that over before it goes out the door, I don't have any problems with that.
We're looking at our HR gal.
I was going to say, if you guys want to do that, I'm happy to
Would
take that on.
you?
Absolutely.
I think it's critical because, we've all taken good notes, but.
And this meeting's recorded, right?
Yeah.
So we
Indeed.
could go back and make sure we've captured everything.
Okay.
So we are all in agreement that with Natalie's final sign-off, the RFP could go out this week?
This week, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And I would propose to work with Michelle in the business office to kind of put
Yes.
that together and have her coordinate with you.
Okay. Would you also be sharing with us the search firms that will be receiving this, so we have an understanding of who those firms are?
Yes.
And can do our own research as well? And I would assume that could be made public for the public, so the public can know? Or is that?
Well, let's-
Just
We'd
thinking about
receive the proposals
transparency.
first.
Yeah, let's look, yeah, we will know who they are by who responds. I don't necessarily want to provide a list of who it's going to, because then if somebody doesn't propose, then it might make their company look bad, just,
So who responds?
yeah.
Okay.
As we anticipate the next board meeting and the presentation from all the recruiting firms, what can we as a board be doing to help expedite the process, to be thinking collectively about things worth considering as, as we move forward in the next steps, so that we're not, I guess, extending the process more than we have to get the legs moving?
Well, short of having a publicly noticed meeting where you can have such a discussion, I think that's really the purpose for tonight, was to get that kind of feedback from you.
Should we be prepared at our February 9th meeting to identify a committee that would then, because we would choose a company, right? And then we would need to form, or at least talk about kind of the larger committee.
We're all involved in
So,
that.
yeah, so my recommendation on that point would be to have the search firm that you select guide you in that process.
Okay.
Don't expect you, I don't know that,
No,
I don't think any of you here on the dais have been through a superintendent recruitment as a board member before, so that's not something I'm going to put on you. That's why we're hiring the professional. And so at the first kind of study session, that the recruiter can then kind of guide that discussion and process and talk about what does this, is there even a committee? Do we want to do it this way, that way? They'll give you different options and share with you what has worked in the past and how it's worked, just to give you a better sense of what the different options look like. Kind of a more detailed version of what I've been presenting to you tonight, essentially.
So if we choose someone to go with on February 9th, I anticipate several special board meetings for this process in the coming 5 to 8 weeks or something. Sorry. No, I lost my thought. Never mind, it'll come back.
It'll come back.
Yeah,
And-
sorry.
And if I can
Sorry,
just
Liz.
add, just to take some of the time pressure, because I don't want anybody to feel rushed in all of this. Yes, it would be great if we could make that selection February 9th, but if for whatever reason we need to do it at a different date, you can always convene a special meeting for that purpose, so. It's the sooner the better, but it's not a hard and fast deadline necessarily, so.
Oh.
For example, if we get feedback from some of the recruiting firms that, the 9th, that's too soon, we may want to then talk about pushing that back a little bit.
Okay.
I don't anticipate that that's going to be the case, but we are now entering that kind of busy superintendent search season. I am personally familiar with several districts that at their February meetings are going to be doing this kind of interview. So it also may be a staffing concern for those firms where there's principally 2 or 3 recruiters and having them be able to be at the same place in the same time. So I think certainly extending an option for them to participate virtually could encourage greater participation. And I don't even know if that's what you want or if you really want them, here in person. That's something for you guys to decide, and we can incorporate that.
I remember my question now.
Ah.
So let's say everything, we are actually able to issue someone on February 9th.
Okay.
Just how soon after could we expect the first sort of workshop with them to then further establish what kind of qualities we're looking for?
I would say within a week, week and a half, and that's really going to be at your direction and
Okay.
request.
Okay?
And again, my understanding is your regular meetings, you meet once a month,
We meet once a month.
so
We're going to have study.
you will need
session
a
meetings.
couple of study sessions.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions?
What are we not asking that we should know about?
Nothing that you won't discover through going through the process.
It's a very mysterious answer. Thank you.
It's a very mysterious question.
Well, I think that we can then prepare a motion to direct staff with your involvement in creating an RFP that will go out to the top search firms in the country to present, to provide their proposals by the 6th, if not sooner, with our February 9th meeting to be, I'm not sure if it needs to be dedicated. You know, I think we're going to have to work with the superintendent, but we're going to need to have enough time in that meeting, depending on how many responses we get, to listen to all and be able to have a process for how to pick, you know, the thinking around, discussion for picking.
Right, and remember, that's also your regular board meeting, so.
Correct.
My supposition is you'll have other regular business
Yes.
in addition to that, so you might want to give that some thought to as to the
Actually,
timing.
In light of that, should we push, and maybe we can look to Anna for input here, for putting the agenda together and having this stuff in place, should we actually be pushing for a little bit sooner to get everything back, to make sure that we have everything?
The agenda will be going out on Monday.
Okay.
So I will need that information. I'll need to know that it's coming, and I will need any final attachments by Monday morning.
Okay. Is it fair to
Monday
ask?
the 6th?
Is it fair to ask for Friday response?
I mean, that's giving them.
I know that's.
That's going to be too soon.
Okay.
Now, you're saying the agenda's going out Monday, the January 30th?
No,
No,
February 6th
Oh, the Monday, the 6th is what you're,
by
yes.
5:30 PM.
But I think you were asking about agenda creation. Or did I misunderstand you?
Having all the materials
Yes.
together, so if we
The
ask
agenda
for a
creation.
response, so you think asking for a response by February 3rd? Friday?
soon.
Okay.
So
Okay.
February 6th
The 6th
by-
may even be too soon. We'll see what the feedback is, but.
By 10 a.m.?
Your normal start time, I would have them turn it in by noon.
Yeah.
And that way, you'll know what the agenda item is. It's just an issue of
adding
uploading the other
attachments.
stuff
So
after.
she'll have a placeholder.
But you'll have a placeholder, you'll have an agenda description.
So there's a motion on the floor.
Can we add with the agreement that we are all agreeing that Natalie will do sign off and make sure that that RFP gets out the door this week, so the rest of us are good on that.
Michelle and I
We
will
can
do
have
that,
that,
yes.
yes. Do I have a?
No, I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. We have a plan. Thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
Saldani,
My pleasure. We will be in touch.
be in touch.
So procedurally, could I ask that if for some reason we get feedback that it's not possible, that we send a notice out to our school community, just letting them know that the RFPs will not be considered for the February 9th meeting, but instead the March 9th, so people have a heads up and are
Wouldn't
not.
it be that we'd have to hold a
Or
special
special,
meeting?
whichever,
Yeah.
but, so we
ASAP,
kind
yeah.
of make sure people are aware of what the
Absolutely.
pushback are.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting at 7:53?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
A second?
I'll second.
You were looking like you were going to say.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Adjourned at 7:54. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Really appreciate your time and input.